Hey there, this is Ginny Victory with victorybeginswithin.com, helping you navigate your vision of success to victory. We are jumping in and doing video for the first time ever, and we're going to continue the series on money, business, and capitalism. So, as you know, the first installment was on business and why business is good. And the second installment was on capitalism and a new definition of capitalism and what that would mean for you in terms of motivating you to new action that would help you navigate your vision of success and actually achieve victory in your life and in your business. And today we're going to talk about money. Specifically, three things around money: money, value, and wealth. Okay, and you can see here that I have other points that I'm going to make, and I want to tell a story to illustrate those points. So this weekend we just finished celebrating the Thanksgiving holiday, and along with it Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and all the different economic events that go on around this season. And so I was out shopping, and I'm in the process of setting up my new live workspace. I just moved, and I have new space that is set up here for all of you to come for when you're a part of one of my mastermind groups, so that we have professional and sacred and strategic space to be able to do the work that you need to do to navigate your vision of success to victory. Okay, so I was out doing my shopping, and it just occurred to me how grateful I am that we live in a country where we get to participate in the free market. And so that means I got to go to the store that I wanted to go to, pick out the products that I wanted to pick out, utilize the services that were best suited for me, do it in the timing that I wanted to do it in, and to some degree select price point, right? So it just gave me another thing to be thankful for, that I have the freedom and the opportunity to operate from my core even when I do the day-to-day and run errands, pick up supplies, decorate, do all that kind of thing, right? So we are now in a capitalist, a free market society, and we didn't start that way. We started with a very Spartan, self-reliant existence. And so people back then were isolated, right? They were self-sufficient. They provided everything that they needed for themselves. And I would imagine often went without, right? And so because they were so isolated and disconnected from other people, they ended up having, like I said, to be self-reliant like that. Okay, so I am coming back and stressing that self-reliant point, because I noticed something with women business owners and a few of you men as well. And I also noticed something within me as I was finishing getting settled in around here this weekend. And so what I noticed was I had just a few pictures left to hang, and I just went ahead and hung them by myself, okay? And when I finished, I had this sense of pride just well up within me, and the thought goes through my head, I can do this. I did that by myself. That feels really good. And then it occurred to me that that was Spartan self-reliance showing up again, and how sort of primal or ancient that is within us. And those are the last few pictures that needed to get hung up. Every other picture, all the window treatments, all the sort of tactical things were done with family and friends who'd come over to help me do that. And I enjoyed that process so much more, and was so grateful to have received and been blessed and share my new home experience with them. Which is in such contrast to the pride of self-reliance and self-sufficiency. And so what I find interesting with entrepreneurs is that that's one of the things that holds us back, is that you feel like you need to do it yourself, and there's an expectation, and there's something that you almost need to prove, and the letting go of that is really difficult. Even though you're struggling, you feel alone, your energy is depleted, you're not effective, and then certainly your earnings and your business suffer. And most importantly, your impact suffers because you're in business because you're wanting to make a difference. And many of you are in business to make a difference in your families, and your families are suffering. And so it's just fascinating to me to see that dynamic be so sort of present in us and run us without us even really realizing it, right? So we started off with this Spartan self-reliance, humankind did. And then we started to connect with our neighbors and notice that neighbor A is really good at farming and produces fabulous beans. And then neighbor B is really good at cheese making, and neighbor C is really good with wool. Okay, and so then we start to trade. And so everyone is able to get what they need up to a point. Okay, so then they start to notice even the limitations of the barter system. And so that limitation looks like this. Neighbor C, who is the wool maker, they are hungry and need some cheese for their family, and so they go to neighbor B and say, in the middle of summer, and say, hey, I need some cheese, here's some wool. And neighbor B says, I don't need any wool right now, it's 108 degrees, I'm sweating, my cows are sweating, and I don't want any wool, so I'm not going to sell you any cheese, right? And so then economic activity breaks down, the relationship breaks down, and our needs are not met, right? So then that might send us back into that self-reliance again on both parts, and that would certainly impact neighbor A as well. So neighbor C comes up with this great idea to give neighbor B these little metal discs that say, I'll give you these discs now, and when you come to me in the winter, I will give you wool in exchange for the cheese that you're giving me right now. Right? So then that raises two questions. Neighbor B then has to decide if neighbor C is good with his word, right? Is that really going to happen? So neighbor B is thinking, is it really going to happen if I take these little metal discs over to neighbor C in the middle of winter and ask for my wool that I didn't need in the summer? Will neighbor C honor that request? Will they honor these little metal discs that I'm bringing back to them, right? So that raises a first question, which is around trust, right? And then it raises another question around what I talked about earlier, around choice and also around well-being. Okay, and so the second thing that it raises is, well, what if I'm neighbor B and I already have enough wool for this winter and what I really need are beans? And so will neighbor A honor these little metal discs? Because let's just say neighbor A already has plenty of cheese. They stocked up a while ago, and so they don't need any cheese, right? So the neighbor A has to be willing to accept the discs and participate in that system, right? So it required, in order for people to have their needs met, continue to operate out of their uniqueness, they needed to move to a system of trust where they trusted one another, where the relationships in the community were foundational to addressing these two things, right? And so in doing so, that's how we got money and the free market economy, was in order to, like I shared in the Business is Good installment, to provide goods and services so that the community flourishes, and to provide meaningful work for people. And so meaningful work means that we're operating out of our uniqueness. Me as a business owner, you as a business owner are operating out of your uniqueness, your strengths, your wiring, and then you provide that opportunity for others, number one, by participating in a free market, and number two, by using contractors or employees or whatever, okay? So that's how we got here, and I just really want to emphasize those 3 points. That money is just a tool that we use to signify this system of relationships, this system of connectivity. That's all that it is. And it comes in different forms. It comes in the metal disc form, the coins. It comes in paper. It comes in checks and stocks and deeds and electronic version and little plastic cards. And so all of those things are not literally money. They just represent trust and the underlying community system that we have set up with one another to make sure that goods and services are provided so that the community flourishes, right? So that our well-being, each individually and collectively, our well-being is cared for, and that we get to operate out of our uniqueness, right? Meaningful work. So the first two reasons why business is good. Business is in place to serve and to serve according to these two things, right? And so, so when you take a look at wealth, the root of that, like if you look up the etymology of the word wealth, the root of that comes from a Middle English word meaning well-being. And so the accumulation of wealth is when it's done out of your core, an accumulation of well-being, right? It's about caring for my well-being, caring for the well-being of my family, and also caring for the well-being of the community as a whole, as I talked about in the capitalism installment, where, for example, Sir Richard Branson talks about Gaia capitalism, a sense of holistic, the whole community is cared for first, and then my profits are second. Shalom capitalism or ethical capitalism that were also examples given in the last installment as well, right? And so those 3 examples of capitalism do take care of the well-being of the community as a whole as much as it cares for your own well-being, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Now for women, business owners, and a few men, we tend to err on the side of loving your neighbor first, caring for the community first, and having this sort of Spartan self-reliance at the same time, which creates this huge chasm and is why you're really struggling in your business, okay? And what I'm finding, now that people are discovering that I'm a CPA, people are asking me to talk to them about their financials and teach them about that. And so I do. I'm happy to teach them the basics of financials. And what I do in addition to that is show them what's going on with the health of their business, their life, and themselves through those numbers, right? And then I'm also able to tell, if I look at your numbers, I'm able to tell, are you operating out of your uniqueness, or are you operating out of something else? Spartan self-reliance, somebody else's expectations, an expert's advice, or where are the areas that you are operating out of your uniqueness? Because there will be those places too, as well as those other things. And then I'm also able to see to what degree you're trusting yourself first, because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, you need to know, like, and trust yourself first, and then others, that fit you will be able to sense that about you and will be willing to do business with you too, right? So you need to have your stuff straight on the inside first, right? Victory begins within, and then, and then it goes from there. It gets reflected on the outside, and then we start to build those relationships and do business with one another. And so this opportunity as a business owner to grow a business and figure out how to handle money and break 6 figures and build wealth, as you can see, is actually a spiritual journey,